All right, we're talking about Dyer here. We're going to listen to some clips from him from a stream called Christian Zionism and Dispensationalism Refuted. So we're going to listen to two clips, and these clips have to do with the righteousness of Abraham, which we have already discussed. Dyer says that in Romans, when Paul writes that Abraham was justified by faith, he should have been citing Genesis 12, but he's citing Genesis 15 or 14, And then if he was really saved by faith alone, well, that would mean he would have been saved in Genesis 12 and not justified in Genesis 15. And there's all these works, good works that Abraham has done in between. And that's really what saved him. The whole faith working through love thing, which we're going to get to. But he really misrepresents it. And we looked at the passage, and we looked at Calvin's response, which is about, this does not tell us when he was justified. It just tells us how he was justified, which is by grace through faith, right? So let's listen to these clips and we'll comment on them. Here we go.
The next covenant, as you I'm sure know, is the Abrahamic covenant. Abraham was a pagan and his dad was an idol maker, Terah. And then Abraham hears the voice of God and converts. He converts to the true God. God, of course, saves him by grace. Abraham is not saved by his works. But you'll notice that God appears to him.
All right, that's enough right there. Abraham was saved by grace. He was not saved by his works. Whoa, that is a big admission from Dyer right there. That is the 100% total opposite of what he has said previously, where he says Abraham was saved by his works, meaning Abraham is saved by faith working through love. So let's listen to the second section that we're going to listen to, and we'll comment on that, and we'll see how this fits together, or doesn't fit together. Here we go.
Just like with all the covenants, if Abraham was disobedient, then he would not have inherited those promises. He was obedient through an active living faith. That's why Paul says in Galatians, faith working through love is what counts, not empty dead faith, as James says. And so James and Paul are in harmony because Protestants don't read the rest of Galatians, where Paul says that it has to be a faith working through love. So Paul's very clear what he means by a saving faith. It's the same thing James means. Protestants just divorce this and create their own fictional legal categories to justify their stupid heresy.
All right, now that stupid heresy is obviously sola fide, that we are saved by grace alone, through faith alone, by Christ alone. Jay absolutely doesn't believe that, even though he just said 20 minutes ago in this video that Abraham was saved by grace, not by works. Here he's saying Abraham's the promises given to Abraham were conditional, based upon the covenant that was made, and if he didn't fulfill his part of the background if he didn't fulfill his part, God wouldn't fulfill his part, and this is totally wrong. It's totally wrong. Abraham could not have failed because God upheld him. Now, when it comes to works and fruits, the Protestants don't say we can have a dead faith, a faith without works, a faith without fruit. No, Jesus said, you'll know them by their fruits. And Jesus said, I'm the vine, you're the branches. Paul said, we are grafted into the vine, grafted into Israel. And what happens? What happens when you're grafted in? The branches get life from the vine. And that is what produces the fruit. Christ in you. Christ working in you. God worketh will and do in you of your good pleasure. The same letter he cited Galatians. In Galatians 2, Paul says, not I live, but Christ liveth in me. And Christ produces those works. And Christ says in the book of John, no man can snatch you out of my hand. He says, no man can come to me except the Father which sent me, draw him to me, and I will raise him up at the last day. No man can come to me except it's given to him by the Father. That's what Christ says. So God initiates faith. He gives you faith. Faith is a gift. It's a gift of God. For by grace are you saved through faith. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. It is not intellectual assent, as the Orthodox teach. In the Confession of Disitheus, Decree 9, we define faith as correct knowledge of God and divine things. And Decree 13, we are justified by faith, that is knowledge, working through love, And the idea that our faith acts as a hand to reach out to the righteousness of Christ to apply it to ourselves, we know to be far from all orthodoxy. So Jay flip-flops here. At first he says Abraham was saved by grace. He wasn't saved by his works. But then he says the promises given to Abraham were all conditional. And God could have not, if he had disobeyed, God would have not fulfilled his promise. Which means God wouldn't have fulfilled his promise, which would have made God a liar, because God said he will do this. He will do this. It wasn't just conditional based upon what Abraham did. He said, I will do this. And what is this? That he would make his seed as the stars of heaven. And that he would bless all nations of the earth through him, through that seed. The seed being, of course, Jesus Christ. So there was no chance at all he could have failed. The heart of the king is in the hand of God, and he turns it whithersoever he will. He has mercy on whom will have mercy, compassion on whom will have compassion. Salvation is 100% monergistic. It has nothing to do with our works, with faith working through love. And Jay can't even, what does he even mean by faith? If he's going to be orthodox, he's going to have to agree with the confession of Dositheus, which says faith is knowledge. So our salvation is knowledge plus works with no reference to the righteousness of Christ whatsoever. And that is totally unbiblical. It's totally wrong. That is a heresy, not sola fide. Because sola fide is what the Bible teaches. How do you think the thief on the cross was saved? Through works? Through faith? Working through love? What works did the thief on the cross do? None. None. He said, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said, this day thou shalt be with me in paradise. Or today thou shalt be with me in paradise. He didn't do anything except believe. And how did he believe? Because God opened his heart and he was given faith to believe. Just like the way Lydia's heart was opened and she believed the things that Paul taught. Just like how Abraham was drawn out of the Chaldeans, of Chaldea, and he heard the voice of God, and his heart was opened up, and he was justified through his belief. God gave him a promise, and Abraham believed that promise, and it was counted to him for righteousness, right? Not his works at all, whatsoever. So Jay just gets it all wrong. He flips it up, flip-flops. At one moment he's saying Abraham was saved by grace. The next moment he's saying everything was conditional and Abraham could have failed, and it's all faith working through love, and sola fide is a heresy. Well, that's really all that we got to say for today. It's just the same nonsense, same Eastern Orthodox nonsense coming from this grifter. Well, I shouldn't say grifter, but I mean, does he really not understand orthodoxy? I really don't understand why this guy never, ever, ever talks about the confession of Dositheus when he's talking about Protestantism. You know, because the confession of Dositheus is the official Orthodox response to Protestantism. And not only that, it is dogmatically binding today, which means Decree 9, faith is knowledge, and Decree 13, we are justified by our knowledge. That's faith, knowledge plus works. And the idea that faith acts as a hand to hold on the righteousness of Christ to apply to ourselves is far from the mind of orthodoxy. So the Orthodox do not believe the righteousness of Christ saves us. And then question 1, confession of Dositheus, the laity are forbidden from reading the scripture. And you can see, if you watch this stream, he's reading the scripture. What's he doing? That's not orthodox at all. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.